Hello, it's been a while, hasn't it? How are you all? You make it through winter. We're still in the middle of it. Still very cold. However, keep putting one foot in front of the other and we march on. I had ultimately given up the political videos because it was just all too very depressing, and even to just kind of talk about it was just shit and horrible. Anyway, in the new year I've come back refreshed, with the mindset that we just take the piss because that's really all they're worth. Now, obviously, I don't want to teach you to suck eggs, but MPs lie. There's no great mystery about that. All MPs lie. I think the pertinent question here is, why do we spend our valuable time entertaining these liars? Why do we give any particular value to these liars? I mentioned it on Twitter the other day. The greatest deception that any MP and the political system has achieved is to convince us, the electorate, that they are needed. They're not. We could wipe out every MP overnight, and the following day, sun would rise, people would just go about their work. MPs are not required. A system is required, but MPs, no. I mean, you could argue that in the sense that we just completely get rid of the entire political system in this country, would fall back on tribes, tribal things. We'd fall back on things like that, and and we develop from there. But I can assure you, and I'm fairly positive that most of you will agree with me when I say that the most enlightened position that we could ever possibly hold in this country is not the current political system or MPs. So, with that in mind, let's come to the minor distraction that is the Prime Minister. He was asked whether he had a private doctor, a private GP, and he refused to answer. Well, of course he's going to refuse to answer, because that's lying by omission, or lying. He's not revealing the truth. Because of course he's got private healthcare. I mean, it's not hard, is it? All MPs have got probably on private healthcare. I was kind of taken aback when Johnson was supposedly on his deathbed with COVID, that he was treated by the NHS. And I sort of, I don't know, add fuel to the fire that maybe it was all just a publicity stunt. I mean, he swears he was seriously ill, and I'm not going to accuse any NHS staff of lying. They've come out and said he was pretty ill. It was just all the timing of it, wasn't it? I mean, I'm sure you're not going to bang on the desk and point fingers at me for being slightly cynical about it. I'm sure I'm not the only one. So, is Rishi Sunak not revealing what his medical history is, and it's private anyway. But in the context of the question regarding the NHS and nurses' strikes, he didn't need to answer it, to be honest. He could just go and tell the interviewer to do one. He didn't choose to do that. He just chose to do what MPs do and lie by omission. But then we come on to Stephen Barclay. He's a bit different, isn't he? Because he doesn't give a shit. Well, most MPs don't give a shit. But he's more blasé about it. He kind of wears it. Big badge here. I'm Stephen Barclay, and I don't give a shit. And underneath that, he's probably got the T-shirt that says "Let the bodies pile high," because he's doing fuck all to help the nurses. You know, let me remind you again, I shouldn't need to say this, but there are some people, thanks to MTV, that have the memory of a goldfish. MPs lie. Okay? So Stephen Barclay is lying whenever he says, well, we tried to get round the table with the nurses, but they weren't having anything of it. And if anybody dies during this period of time when they're on strike, then it's the nurses' fault. The lies are just tumbling out of the man's gob because he has no responsibility. Health Secretary, we shouldn't even call him that. We should just refer to him as just being, he's Barclay. He's not doing, the government isn't going to win against the nurses. The only way they're going to win is put the military out. Excuse me. Pardon me. When they send in with people with guns. I'm not saying for 1 minute that that's going to happen. But that's generally when you've got a situation like this and a deadlock. And I do hope the nurses don't back down. They do need a significant pay rise so they can live comfortably, because what they do is critical work. So the other thing is that MPs don't do critical work, and if you point that out to an MP, they get very, very pissed off very quickly. They don't want you telling other people that they are not relevant. They're not relevant. Nurses do a better job. They're more critical to society. MPs aren't. All MPs do is sit in a building and create problems. Cheers. So please back our nurses. Please don't listen to MPs. They lie. And please understand that the only reason why the Tory party are lying through their back teeth now and will try and paint the whole situation as being very, very rosy is because they want to hang on to power, not because that they care, or they want to improve society, or they want to invest in the NHS, or they want to reduce unemployment, or they want to sort out the immigration. All they want to do is cling on to power and get richer. That's all MPs want. Now, caveat. It's a sweeping generalisation, and of course there's going to be exceptions. But on the whole, all MPs lie. All of them are just looking to profit from a situation. Look at the VIP lanes for the PPE contracts during COVID. Back our nurses, back our doctors, back the NHS, because they deserve to have a decent salary increase. And it's the old adage, isn't it? If you don't get away with it very often, when you are going to down your tools, you hit them hard. Hit them bloody hard, in fact. Now the nurses and the doctors, the NHS, have the public on side, and they will remain to have the public on side, even though that the press in this country are doing their level best to reverse that situation. Be very careful what you read in the press about this whole the NHS striking and things like that. I've already seen some opinions and observations from people on Twitter, and if you really think, if you've really got the mind to research some of these, do please research them, because you'll generally find that the ones that are speaking out against the NHS aren't true. I'm not saying they all are, but the majority, I would say that 80% of the ones that I've casually looked up have been inherently untrue. So there's a muddying of the waters going on with the NHS, led by the media again. So we have the MPs lying, and we have the media covering up, muddying the waters. Who do you believe? Well, I would believe the people who do the job day in, day out, and are working incredible hours. I want to leave you with one last thought. Take into account how much an MP earns, their working hours, the perks and kickbacks that MPs enjoy once they're elected by us, the electorate. Compare their day to a nurse or doctor on shift patterns, an NHS doctor and nurse on shift patterns. And Stephen Barclay had the audacity to say if NHS staff want a bigger salary increase, they need to work harder. Every nurse up and down this country and every doctor has every right to be absolutely livid at this man, because he clearly has no idea what he's talking about. He shouldn't be employed in the office that he currently holds. I would argue that most, if not all, MPs are not suitable for the office that they hold. But Barclay said that if nurses or doctors want a salary increase, they need to work harder. That is the level and intellect of the people, the unions, who are trying to negotiate a better wage for nurses and doctors in this country. That is the level of people they're having to negotiate with. The nurses are going to win. They have to. They have to stick by their guns, and the unions have to knock the government a hard line on this, whatever it takes. And we, as the electorate, cannot afford to let the NHS go. We cannot afford to have any MP, any government take away the NHS from us. We must defend it now. So, support your nurses and doctors, support your NHS. And what's the best way of doing that? Don't believe the hype. Don't believe the lies. If you see a story in the media and it strikes a chord with you, research it, look it up. Is that story actually truth? 100% true. Is it being reported accurately? And lastly, The other way to support the NHS is don't believe the MPs, especially the ones in government. They have every reason to lie right now because their future as an MP depends on it. Their lifestyle depends on it. Thank you for listening to this little rant. I'm going to go back to sleep now. I'm not going to ramble on about my health because I've already 15 minutes. Wow, that went fast. It's amazing, isn't it? Get me on to talking about the government and away we go. Thank you for listening, stopping by. If you'd like to add to the debate, please put a comment underneath the under this video. I like to reply to all of them and keep the conversation going. Even if it's just to say, well, you're a right-wing tit. Yeah, I'm not sure about that one. I'm not sure. I think I probably got me confused with somebody else. Anyway. Thanks for dropping by. Bye-bye.